You guys look like... What do they look like, Jimmy?
Dorks. They look like a couple of dorks.
Get those nerds! Nerds! Nerds!
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
What? Are you kidding? We got us a family here.
Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
You are listening to the In the Mouth of Dorkness podcast. Here are Brad, Lisa, Brian, and Darren.
Welcome to another edition of the REVIEWcast podcast. Joining us is Brian Young, the Turtle Dork.
Why are you breaking my balls?
And also joining us is Lisa Gullickson, the wife dork.
What the fuck is that? What the fuck is that, a fucking cat? Hey, don't look at me like that. That's a weird looking fucking cat. Ma! Yo, Ma, there's a stray cat outside. I don't want it to start a fight with Lucy. It's okay, Lucy. It's okay, Lucy. Don't worry about it. Ma! Ma, there's a weird fucking looking stray cat outside. It looks like Grandma the fucking thing. Hey, get out of here. I don't even know if that's a fucking cat. Blink, motherfucker. No.
And also joining us is Brad Gullickson, Mouth Dork.
Enough said.
And I'm your host, Darren Smith, the Disco Dork. I like it! And welcome to another edition of the REVIEWcast podcast.
That skit, that Michael Rappaport is the funniest thing I think I saw all
Is
week.
it a skit? Is it fake?
It's fake. Well, it's his voiceover over that footage.
Oh.
It's not. He does. I've heard that he does that a lot. He'll take footage and then he'll just put like his own voiceover.
That makes me
over it.
sad because I was imagining that
I thought it was
Michael
too.
Rappaport lives with his mom.
I know. I thought that too
that he
until I
hates
found
stray
out.
cats.
I know. I shouldn't have pulled the veil back.
The
but
magic is
it's
gone.
I'm sorry, but that's still a funny ass skit.
I want that kitten. That kitten is so ugly that it's cute. It's like it's the full 180. 360? I don't know math, but it's really cute.
Yeah.
It's a cute, ugly cat.
Yeah.
I dig it. How was your week in Dork?
For me, not too bad. Was able to catch our review movie, Widows. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And there's a movie, Green Book, which comes out wider this upcoming week for Thanksgiving, but I think it was in limited release this past weekend, and it was playing at a theater near me. So I said I wanted to go ahead and check it out. And I thoroughly enjoyed the film. There's been a lot of buzz about this movie as far as like getting a lot of Academy Awards consideration. Some people think it's a shoo-in for like Best Picture of the Year. To me, it doesn't feel necessarily like a Best Picture film. I think some of the emotionality, because a lot of people are calling this a crowd-pleasing film, and it definitely is a crowd-pleasing film that does kind of pull at your heartstrings, but a lot of times it feels manufactured to a degree.
That's the impression I get from the trailer.
Yeah, and of course this is based on a true story, and it has the thing you see at the end of every movie where it gives you the update on like these two different characters who passed away, I think, months apart from each other in 2013. So they did become really close friends. But I gotta say, even with that being said, I think Viggo Mortensen and Mahershala Ali give astounding performances in this movie. They are really, really magnetic to watch, and even Linda Cardellini as Viggo Mortensen's wife.
I love that she's having like a resurgence.
Yeah, and she is so
As
awesome.
playing wives.
As playing wives.
Yeah.
But like, you look at that face. Who wouldn't want to be married to that face? It's so sweet.
She is, and she's very sweet in this movie. But yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed just the relationship, the road trip aspect of this film.
What about Viggo's accent?
I buy it. I mean, just
It's a lot for me.
Him as an just
Like
hearing
you
it
said in the trailer. Why you busting my balls? Hey.
Yeah, especially that part right there. Oh, man.
I don't like it.
He does lay it on kind of thick, and I think that's the part of the movie that, even though I do kind of like it, the Italian-American aspect of it, like, I would consider them co-leads, not necessarily a supporting lead, because the movie starts off with Viggo Mortensen, and you really get into his life, his backstory, where a lot of his prejudices come from. I mean, he's like a bouncer at the Cabana.
Cabana Club.
Club, yeah. And he's kind of this guy that's like scrounging for money to make ends meet. So he goes into like this hot dog tournament with somebody at a diner where he has to eat like 26 hot dogs to win $50.
Is it VF?
It is VF. I
you.
thought so because they cut. They you see them start to do the hot dog thing, and then they cut to when he comes home, and Lena Carlina asked him, was like, where did you go? He's like, I did this hot dog competition, and he ate 25 hot dogs, and she gets all pissed, and he's like, well, I ate 26. And then it's like he gives her the $50 and whatnot. So there's a job to have a driver, because Mahershala Ali's character, who plays Doc Shirley, he lives above Carnegie Hall, and he's going on this tour in the Deep South, and he's looking for a driver. So they have all these people come and interview to be a driver. And so he interviews Viggo Mortensen's character, whose name, I forget his name in the film, but he says to him, he's like, I need somebody that's going to be able to clean my clothes, shine my shoes. And because he's a black man and he's like an Italian, he's like, once he says shine your shoes, he's like, hey, look, I'm not going to do that. But he really wants him to be his driver, because he feels like, because of his experience as a bouncer, he feels, I guess, to some degree, he could probably protect him at going down south. And just to see how this relationship kind of flourishes as the movie progresses is really, really interesting. But, I mean, I would definitely recommend the film, but I could see how some people can be on either side of the fence.
So the critique I read the other day, they compared this film's ending to the climax of BlacKkKlansman, where you come out of Green Book feeling like, hey, these two folks, this one black guy, this one white guy, they're able to come to terms and see each other as human beings, and it leaves you feeling like there's hope in the world. And then BlacKkKlansman comes in and says, like, no. Hey, we've solved this little problem here right now in this moment, but then there's Charlottesville, 40 years later.
Exactly. And I think the movie does kind of have that pie in the sky kind of feel to it, where it's just like, yeah, there's a lot of segregation, there's a lot of, all these different things that's going on in the world, but at the end of the day, like, we all can come together, which is true, and it's a good message to send out, but
I feel like we keep going back to stories of this era to say, like, look at the progress that was made.
Yeah.
But then here we are in 2018 going like, yeah, progress was made, whatever.
Yeah, and I think that kind of does a disservice to, and I don't want to say that we just need to kind of follow in, like, a lot of the negative stuff that's happening in the world, and we should have maybe some of these feel-good movies out there, but I don't want to say the movie feels false in that regard. But there is something that just feels like it's just.
But isn't that this type of story? Isn't this the type of story that we've revisited a lot already? Like, does it feel new and exciting, or does it feel like
no?
Yeah.
No.
That's what I get from the trailer, and this is why I've been so hesitant to see the film.
Yeah, and talking about the conversations that we've had about the films that have come out this year. This just feels like it's kind of going in the opposite direction of that. Like, this doesn't spark conversation. This doesn't spark us to really progress that conversation as far as dealing with different type of bigotries and racisms in the world. And it really just kind of looks at it on a surface level. There's aspects in this film where I just feel like I wanted more from it, because there's a point where I think they go down south. I can't remember what city they're in, but you see him get harassed by some white guys at a bar. But we kind of come into that scene halfway into it. Like, we don't see how that scene progresses. We just see one of the trio, one of Doc Shirley's bandmates, come to Viggo Mortensen's character. It's like, Doc needs you. He went to a bar, and then we cut to the bar, and we just see him getting harassed by these guys. So it just kind of happens a matter of factly. I'm like, well, I want to see how all this stuff kind of progressed, how we led into that. But everything is kind of told from Viggo's point of view, and we don't really get into Doc Shirley's point of view, because it even hints at him being a gay man. And there's a scene where he's in a pool with another guy, but then the officers have him and the other guy locked up, and Viggo Mortensen has to come and get him. And we just come into that scene through Viggo Mortensen's point of view, and we don't see how that scene actually plays out and progresses. And I think those are important factors that could have made this film a little bit more, I guess, conversational, a little bit more, I guess, meaty to some degree. But we don't get to see any of that stuff. We just kind of come into it kind of matter-of-factly, and it's just, I think it's a bit of a disappointment to that film. But It does pack a punch at the end, and I thought it was. I enjoyed watching it, but it's not a movie I thought of since.
But
To me, I wouldn't want to sleep on an opportunity to see Mahershala Ali. That, like, to me, that's what I feel. I want to watch that performance. I want to watch Viggo's performance.
Yeah,
They're two really interesting actors, and even if they don't have the meatiest of subject matter, and it's, a lot of sentimentality. I'm up for feeling good. Who's not up for feeling good? I'll watch a feel-good movie.
But that's why I recommend it, because they are remarkable in this film. They are really, really good. And even though the script in the movie, to me, just kind of falls short as really just being something a little bit more profound, their performances, I think, are just worth going to check the film out. So hopefully, Brad, maybe you'll...
I'll watch
take
it. I'm always excited to go see a movie, and like you said, I love those performers.
Yeah.
I'm just not sold on that trailer.
Yeah, I feel you. I feel you on that.
But it won the audience award at Toronto International Film Festival,
which shocks me.
And Middleburg, the audience really loved it there, apparently. So
okay. I mean, it's a rousing film, but it's just not one for me that stays with me. So it's about 3.5 maybe.
Okay.
I don't know what
Get on that letterbox, Brian.
I know.
I want to see these stars.
I was
again.
trying to write a review, but my brain this weekend just wasn't working. So I was like,
I feel you there.
I was like, I'll get to it, but yeah, it's a good movie. Definitely recommend.
All right, Wife Dork.
Yes.
How was your week in Dork?
Wonderful, as per usual.
Yeah.
Brad actually introduced me to a really interesting documentary that it came out originally in 2010. It's called Marwencol.
Oh, yes.
So,
soon to be a major motion picture.
Exactly, starring Steve Carell, directed by Robert Zemeckis.
Yeah.
I'm going to circle around back to that idea because it's about this particular guy's story that I just found really fascinating, and something that, I think Darren, as a artist, as a person who draws, or anybody who has artistic pursuits, can really find, can really identify a lot with. The documentary centers around Mark Hogenkamp, and he worked at a bar, and he was jumped by 5 guys who were younger than him. He was kind of middle-aged guy, jumped by a bunch of young dudes who beat him to just such a complete pulp that bashed his head, that he went into a coma. And when he came out of the coma, he he forgot his entire life up to that point. He had complete amnesia. He could not speak. He had to relearn how to speak. He had to relearn how to talk. And the only reminders he had of his life was still pictures, and he had his journals. Okay. And he was an amazing, realistic artist. He loved to draw people. And but because of the attack, his hand had the shakes. He had a serious shake, so he couldn't draw anymore. But this community, and it was a struggle to come back. And this community really rallied around this guy. From all accounts, was not a really nice dude. He was an alcoholic. He was late for work all of the time. But he had, and he was broke. You know what I mean?
He referred to himself as vulgar.
Yeah. He knows from accounts from his journal, he was not a good dude. But seemingly the accident knocked the alcoholism out of him. He didn't feel any kind of pull towards alcoholism, and he doesn't really identify with that guy, the guy he used to be. But anyway, so the people despite his reputation, the people in the town really kind of rallied around him. So he would go to the art store, but he was frustrated because he couldn't draw anymore. And so the people at the art store would just give him models to build. And so he started building models. And and then, even though he was a terrible employee before, the people at the bar hired him. He can only work once a week, but he just rolls the meatballs that are going to be served at that bar. And so like the people around him really take care of him. But from starting with the models, he started getting a fascination with dolls, and he started building this World War II town that he called Marwencol. And he started peopling the town with dolls he thought looked like the people in his life. And so, he had a doll that he considered his mom. He had a doll that he considered the woman next door that he had a crush on. He had a doll that he considered his ex-wife that he doesn't remember ever being married to. And he has a doll that he considered himself. And so he
An avatar.
Exactly. So he kind of created this town around like his ideal world. So it's World War II, but it's like this kind of tight little town where the SS have kind of just forgotten it because they had already gone through and killed all the men. So all that's left is Barbies, is sexy women, and his little doll is making up with the women, and then he has other people start discovering Marwencol and loving it so much that they want to stay, but in order to stay, they have to be peaceful. And it's just a really beautiful idea. And he started taking pictures, like still pictures of these dolls, of these dioramas. And an art magazine discovered photographer discovered him and was shocked by the realism that he got in these pictures of these dolls, because there have been other diorama type photographers, but there's always this touch of irony, and with Mark Hogenkamp there was just zero irony. They're just, if you look at these photos, and you can find, he has a website online, you look at these photos, they're absolutely stunning and expressive and heart-filled. So that's the story of him finally like getting the courage up to do his first art show. But he really does like live through these dolls. These dolls are his whole life. He
refers to them as if they were people.
Yeah, he takes his 3 favorite women, and before he goes to bed, he tucks them in at night. There is a huge kind of element of his personality that I'm kind of keeping under wraps, because it does reveal itself in a way, but it relates to what instigated the attack, which I think is really important. And I think an aspect of society that is so entirely misunderstood and can be made a joke of, and people don't really look at. So from that aspect, I really felt for this guy, and it does remind you, like, it takes all, nobody is different as a choice. Being different is, if everybody is just out in the world trying to be their true selves, and it's not easy for anybody, but people really make it hard for other people. So Brad showed me this movie, and I was completely moved by it. The story of this artist who had no therapy, he didn't have money, so he created his own way that he could cope with being attacked. And it's not like he's not still scared. It's not like he doesn't walk down the road terrified that somebody's going to come up behind him and take his life away again. But he actually walks his dolls, like he puts them in a little, he can't walk a straight line because he'll wander into the road because of his brain injury. But so he has to so when he walks, he has to stare at the white line on the side of the road. But he drags a Jeep with his dolls in it. And he gets a lot of solace out of, well, they're well armed. Like, he has tiny weapons to go with his tiny World War II dolls. So they're well armed. So he just kind of walks them, and that gives him a lot of solace. So he really lives through these dolls, and it's incredibly thoughtful. And so Brad is like, okay, now let's watch the Robert Zemeckis trailer.
Okay. Lisa had not seen it yet, the trailer.
Oh, okay.
And the trailer made me so angry. I just looked at it and I was like, fuck this movie. It's just another opportunity of, Robert Zemeckis, he loves technology. He likes to make that part of his storytelling, which I respect. But, I feel like it's such a misrepresentation of this guy's life with his dolls. Okay. Yeah, he's part delusional, but he's part inventive.
It takes it and turns it into a gimmick.
It made me sick. It just made me really upset.
I'm really curious with Welcome to Marwen, which is the Zemeckis title.
Right.
For some reason, they take out the call. I have a guess, but I won't say why because it'll reveal things. But Will Welcome to Marwen reveal that aspect to his personality?
Oh my gosh! If it doesn't,
yeah, I don't know.
I'm writing Zemeckis off. I'm going to send him a stern letter.
I'm really curious. I'm super curious about the movie. Like Green Book, I don't have much faith in it. But I'm curious about both movies. I want to watch both.
Yeah.
But I really encourage you to watch watch Marwencol. So
That's on Netflix?
I think we streamed it on Amazon.
It's not. You have to stream it on Amazon. You have to subscribe to Fandor, which we did.
Oh, okay.
And then you cancel that trial after 7 days.
Yeah, but
Cool.
it's worth it. It's
Okay.
really, really worth it.
Fandor's cool though, so you could not cancel your 7-day trial too.
Yeah,
Sounds
we're not afraid
good.
of committing, me and Brad Gullickson.
There you go.
All right. How was your week in Dork, B?
Yeah, it was a weird week in Dork. It was an emotional week in Dork.
Oh, yeah.
Stan Lee passed away on Tuesday, I want to say.
Yep.
95 years old, lived to quote unquote, the ripe old age. Obviously had a tremendous existence on this planet. So it's not something that you necessarily need to weep and fall over. But I just wanted to take my week in Dork to acknowledge his contribution to my life and to pop culture in general. It's interesting because also this year we lost Steve Ditko, who, along with Stan Lee, created Spider-Man, although you could also say along with Jack Kirby created Spider-Man 2. Stan Lee, there's a lot of misunderstanding of how he operated and how Marvel operated in the 1960s. And before his passing, I was always very eager to champion Steve Ditko and Jack Kirby as true massive contributors on equal footing, I would say, to Stan Lee because of the Marvel method. And if audience members don't know, the Marvel method was a style of storytelling that company used to produce as many comic books as possible. Stan Lee would have an idea, he would go to Jack Kirby and say okay, Norse god, big hammer, his name's Thor, go make a comic. And then Kirby would go out and illustrate a plot, create entire characters, do the entire comic book, send those completed art pages back to Stan Lee, and then Stan Lee would go, well, this is not exactly what I asked for, but this is what I've got. I'll fill in the thought balloons and word balloons and captions, and that's how a comic was made in the 1960s. And so for that decade, what Stan Lee contributed was, he was 39 years old before he created the Fantastic Four with Jack Kirby. I'm 39 years old. It gives me hope. You're okay, I still can contribute a lot to this planet at the old age of 39. But at 39, he was kind of fed up. He'd been working as a writer under Martin Goodwin for a long time and was getting ready to leave comics. He was writing news features and copywriting on the side, and it was all just not creatively fulfilling. So he was going to bail. But his wife Joan said, if you're going to leave, you should write at least one thing the way you want to write it. I know Martin Goodwin wants you to do action, biff, bam, pow, but before you go, write a comic the way you would want it, and the worst thing that happens is it's your last comic. And that last comic ended up being Fantastic Four #1. And the reason that was so revolutionary is Stan Lee was looking to start talking to an audience that was slightly older than the kids they were promoting to. So he wanted to embrace characterization. He wanted to embrace emotion. And he wanted to tell stories that, yes, were about superheroes that had punching and monsters and mole men and Dr. Doom and all that stuff. But he also wanted to put their doubts at the center of the story as well. He wanted to put real human problems in their story so that the Mole Man is a problem, but the fact that Ben Grimm became the Thing and lost his humanity, the self-loathing that he experienced as the Thing was just as important as whatever clobbering time action occurred. That is what Stan Lee contributed to comic books and completely changed that medium for the better. And because of that decision, like when I think about how I got into comic books, it was like Spider-Man was cool, but I was more interested in like if him and Mary Jane were really going to make it. I love the X-Men, but I responded to all the romantic drama within that group. Is Jean Grey going to go with Angel or Beast or Cyclops? Oh God, I want her to go with Cyclops. Oh, it looks like that's going to happen. Thank goodness. Magneto's propelling missiles at the Earth. So yes, like I do think that Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko, John Romita, and all those guys deserve more credit than they got and more money than they ever got. But I'm glad to see their names on the films now. Bill Finger for Batman and all that stuff. But Stan Lee, the reason we celebrate him more than those other guys is because he stuck around with the company for a much longer period of time. He went from writer to editor to publisher to the face of the company. And so when Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko faded away into their own little existence as artists and not as the face of the company, Stan Lee could still stay there and say, hey, put me in movies. And he was a real champion of the form. And, you think about the way fandom is today, he's a big reason why we have like DC versus Marvel, Star Wars versus Star Trek. He championed competition. Make mine Marvel. Don't read Brand Eck, read Marvel. He was a carnival barker as much as he was a writer or an editor. I don't know. Like, it's hard to imagine what comics would be today without his contributions. It's hard to imagine what Brad would be without his contributions. Rest easy, sir. I hope you and Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko are all getting along.
Yeah. All right. For my weekend dork, I got to see The Long Dumb Road.
Oh, did you go to AMC Hoffman?
I did go to AMC Hoffman to see The Long Dumb Road. I enjoyed it. Jason Mantzoukas always looks like a homeless guy.
That fits here.
He's great in the film. I'm not gonna go into too much detail because didn't you talk about it?
Yeah, I talked about it a little bit.
I enjoyed Jason Mantzoukas' performance. The uncomfortable nature of his personality, the volatile nature of his personality. And Tony Revolori, he was great in the film. Although, like, there were certain times in the film where, like, the image quality of the film changed. Did you notice that? Did you see it
I watched it at home on my laptop,
shit.
It was hard for me to.
Oh, okay.
It looked okay to me.
But I did appreciate seeing it on the big screen. But there were certain scenes there after they decided to go and meet the Jason Mantzoukas' Richard's high school sweetheart.
Oh boy, awkward.
Oh man. But that scene is so great though in that. So there's a scene where Richard, which is Jason Mantzoukas' character, where he is convinced to go and look up his old high school sweetheart because she's the one that got away. And so he gets there, and once he gets there, for me, the image, that's where like the image quality changed. But like once he gets there, the scene plays out. It's weird because at first I go, okay, he's going to go in here and he's going to bomb this. But then like the way the scene plays out, I'm like, oh, well, it's going okay. Maybe they did one of those things where like they showed something in the trailer that's not in the movie. But then like it doesn't go that way. But I appreciate how the director like even built up to that scene with having him go off to talk to her in the kitchen, and then Tony Revolori's character go off to the daughter's room or whatever. But I don't know, like I just thought, like, the way that movie ended. Brian and I were having a conversation earlier about a movie that we're actually going to go watch later tonight, Body, this afternoon. And in regards to, like, the ending of that film and the movie and the film not ending the way you initially want it to, but when you give some thought to either what the movie is trying to say or what would be truthful to the characters, you kind of go, okay, well, it makes sense. But so this movie ends in that way. I feel like it doesn't end in you know, they're two best buddies forever or whatever. I felt like it ended in a very realistic way, so much so that, like, even like when the credits start, the way the credits start.
Did you watch the entire credits?
I got to the part where he was like, "Oh shit, I got one," and then, like, I stopped. I got up. So I don't know, like,
doesn't change.
Okay, yeah. So I got up. So
he's just playing slots.
Oh, okay. So, but I mean, I don't know. Like, I just the movies. It was the runtime. It said it was like an hour and a half, like an hour and 29 minutes. It felt longer than that. There were some parts that kind of felt long, but for like a road movie, I mean, I appreciated it. Like, it's.
I feel like that film could easily have been shorter, and it manufactures a few storylines to pad it out. The Ron Livingston storyline in particular, I think, is very not realistic, but at the same time enjoyable. Yeah. But was that needed? I don't know.
And that kind of felt out of tone with, like, the rest of the film. Even though, like, Jason Mantzoukas would say like outrageous stuff, but, like, it didn't seem like out of the realm of just a inappropriate guy, right? But that part of the story,
you're like, this is kooky.
Wait a minute, was I just not getting this the whole time? Was this what the movie was going for the whole time? But I enjoyed it. I thought it was funny. Like, I just, with the way that scene is set up, like, I appreciated that.
Yeah.
You know,
like, it feels like its own little short film within the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, but I don't know if you could see it. Unfortunately, like, it's only playing in a limited release around here.
I think it's on demand now. I think you can stream it.
I would say it's worth watching if you're a fan of Jason Mantzoukas. Definitely, I like when comedians or funny people do dramatic roles and do them well. Like, it's not, if you know him or know of him as just like this crazy person from the How Did This Get Made podcast or voicing characters on Big Mouth. I mean, he is that. There's that Jason Mantzoukas, but, like, there's some damage stuff. Like, there's some damage to this character that I feel like he represents well with his performance. And even when he's doing, like, his Jason Mantzoukas stuff, to be able to act in that way, and some of that stuff may have been, I don't know if it was like ad-libbed or whatever, if they were just riffing off of each other, but for him to do it in a way where it still feels in line with the narrative, the character, and it doesn't feel like he's pandering to a camera, but he is responding to another character. And he does that well. Like, I was paying attention to just his eyes and his body language and stuff like that. And I don't know, like, he gives a good performance.
He's such a force in the film.
He is.
You know.
He is.
And if you don't enjoy that presence, you're not going to enjoy the movie.
Yeah.
But if you're already kind of keyed in because you listen to How Did This Get Made or watch Big Mouth or whatever, man, are you going to eat it up? Yeah.
He's great. He's always, like you said, when he's on screen, your eyes just go to him. And he's captivating. So I don't know. Hopefully we'll get to see him in more, like, leading more things.
I think, like, a lot of what makes Jason Mantzoukas such a vital character is that his real life is nuts. Like, if you have an opportunity, if you want to seek out his interview on You Made It Weird, or an interview, I don't know if he's done What the Fuck with Mark Maron yet, or I'm sure he has, because I know that I've heard, like, long form interviews with this dude, and his real life is just crazy. Like, yes and is his, like, life philosophy. He majored in musicology, which I find fascinating. But I think the real interesting thing about him that I think, and this is Lisa's flight of fancy, but it's true. Okay, here we go. Let's back up my thought. But he's like deathly allergic to eggs. Like I
think I remember you telling me.
Yeah, he's so allergic to eggs, and he eats out all of the time, and he has to carry and he talks a lot about wait staff just don't know what eggs are in terms of when he's being served food. So I think that when you're an artist and you have that knowledge that you could die at any second, it gives your performance and your art a vitality that is unparalleled. I think that he has, his mortality is in front of him at every meal. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Well, it works because he definitely comes across as, I don't know, he in the movie, I don't want to sell him or the character or his performance short by saying he's playing a version of himself because I really don't actually know him. I just know of him from other movies or when I see him in live shows or whatever, stuff like that. But he's not far off from that. But there is, because of the story, because of the character, there are levels to him that go beyond just him being this wild and crazy guy. And it was something that I appreciated.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's gonna do.
He has done What the Fuck. You can find that. So he's done You Made It Weird and What the Fuck, and you should listen to both of those podcasts with him because he'll
Those are his
inspire
life story
you.
ones?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So when we come back from the break, the review cast for this week is going to be for the new film Widows. So stay tuned, and we'll talk about that film when we get back.
Hey, this is Liz from People I Think Are Cool, a bi-weekly podcast where I interview my favorite creatives from across the globe. If you're looking for a dose of creative inspiration, then go to peopleithinkarecool.com or subscribe to People I Think Are Cool on iTunes and Stitcher.
You like film, from cult to classic, from blockbuster to B-movies. And there just isn't that one place with all the fan fervor and passion that's covering the kind of mad, diverse brilliance that you love.
Well, that's where you're wrong.
AfterMovieDiner.com is that fan-built movie nirvana just for you, featuring the sweet, sweet writings of the wife dork herself. AfterMovieDiner.com. Go there. Be the best you can be.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. This week's review cast is for Widows. Full disclosure, I have not had an opportunity to see this, so I'm going to kind of tune out so as not to spoil it for myself.
Literally, my good is all of the spoilers.
Yeah.
Prepare thyself.
Okay,
Maybe,
but you like, so it's a good movie? That's what I don't know.
I really like the movie. If you check out my Letterboxd, I give it 4 stars. I really liked it. First watch. I'm excited to watch it again.
Shit. What about you, B?
Maybe with Darren.
I mean, Lisa and I watched it together. I gave it the same rating. I also came out of that film looking forward to my second watch of it.
Really?
So, pretty high praise.
It's one of those movies that shit unfolds. There are reveals upon reveals.
There's a major reveal, Darren, that I'm sure we're going to talk about, which be really unfortunate for you to get spoiled.
Maybe we should kick Darren out of here.
No, I'm going to leave. Just give me a warning and I'll go leave. I'll go step over there.
You can do the thing where
I'll go sit over there and then you just give me a thumbs up when I come back.
Okay, that sounds good. But I shout when I talk.
Yeah, so listeners, yes, we're going to spoil everything. And I urge you, if you have not watched the film yet, please don't continue to listen to this podcast. Hit pause, come on back after you watch the film. It's a movie you want to see in the theater. It's a movie you want to be a part of the conversation, so go do that. Now come back. So here you are, all the listeners who have watched the film.
Oh my gosh, you got to see Widows? I'm so jealous because I wish I could be in your shoes watching Widows for the first time because it felt great.
How do we feel about Steve McQueen as a director before Widows?
I'm familiar with his filmography. Now, I haven't seen a lot of his films. I have seen Shame, and I missed 12 Years a Slave.
Oh, okay.
I've been wanting to go back and rewatch that. Of course, that won Best Picture a while back. And
it's right behind you there on the wall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And,
recording in the Alamo projection booth. I don't think we've said that on this episode yet, so all that crazy sound you heard in the background, that was the Alamo.
Yeah.
But they can tell by the buzz of excitement.
Yeah.
But yeah, even before that, a lot of his films, I mean, he really comes from the art house indie background with movies like Shame and Hunger.
Shame, Hunger, 12 Years a Slave are devastating movies.
Yes.
You don't come out of there going, that's going to win an audience award, because boy, do I feel great.
No.
Didn't you do Blue Valentine? Like...
No. That was somebody else.
Yeah.
I can't remember who that is. But, so, like, when I heard that Steve McQueen, the guy who did those 3 movies, is doing this heist, female-led
that's what got me excited about
you're
it.
like, well, this is really odd.
Yeah.
What is this movie going to be like?
Yeah.
And it is very different. I was going to say tonally, but, like, it's very much a different genre than his previous 3 films.
It is, but I also think he does maintain that very kind of art house, because the thing about this film is like, and what I noticed about the movie, and I kind of had to remind myself, is like, with people going into it, it's not going to be your like a commercial heist film that
it's
people.
Not Michael Mann.
No, it's not, and it feels very artsy. It feels very character driven. It's very character based,
and it has a lot to say.
It has a lot
in its heist frame.
Yes. I mean, and that's something that kind of took me by surprise too, was the socio-political aspect of the film, with it taking place in Chicago, and showing that the differences between the ghettos of Chicago and the more affluent areas of Chicago, which is brilliantly portrayed with that one shot scene with Colin Farrell and his assistant in the car when they drive from that one area, and you see that there's really no distance.
Just a few blocks.
Just a few blocks between like a impoverished area in Chicago and with the more affluent areas of Chicago, and also the dialogue as far as what he's saying, as far as like him following in his footsteps of his father and not really wanting to be into these politics. And you see the other side of that with Brian Tyree Henry's character and his background, where he comes from and why he wants to run for the Alderman Award at 18. It's an interesting dynamic, a dichotomy as far as what Steve McQueen wants to focus on in the political realm, as far as specifically in Chicago, which I thought was fascinating in the film.
So I guess we'll do the good, the bad, the ugly.
Yeah, I want to peace out.
Yeah. Get out of here, Darren.
All right.
Why don't you get something to eat?
All right. We'll do that.
Okay, so before we get to Lisa, and she can start spoiling everything with her good, Brian, where do you want to start with your good?
Oh man, my good. Well, it really just kind of starts with the kind of stuff I was just talking about before, and really that one scene in the car. I just thought that was just brilliantly done, the way he was able to kind of portray that. And then I just thought the performances and the characters of Viola Davis, and specifically her and Elizabeth Debicki and their relationship together, because those are the 2 ladies that really drive this movie forward, and their, I guess, friendship, or their budding friendship, as the end of the film kind of implies maybe, but you definitely see that in the beginning they aren't really friends, and Viola Davis is really just kind of doing this.
Viola Davis has to pull off this heist. Plot-wise, her husband and all of his gang members have been murdered, or not murdered, but killed in the line of duty, in the line of heist duty by the Chicago PD, and she's left owing a debt to
Brian Tyree Henry's character. I gotta pull
Mulligan.
this up. Yeah. Well, Mulligan is the
Colin
Farrell.
Jamal something. I can't remember his last name.
Manning. Jamal Manning.
And so he wants his money that Liam Neeson's character stole
from him, which was $2 million. And so Liam Neeson left a book to all of his previous plans, the plan to that job, and his next plan. And I'm not going to get into spoilers. I'll let Lisa spoil. But she finds the jobs to his next plan and says, okay, this is a great opportunity for us to split the profits and to be able to pay the Mannings back the $2 million.
Right, and if I don't pay back the money, I'm going to give them all your names anyway, so you need to join me on this.
Exactly. And I like the beginning of the film, too, to really just see the home life of these ladies with these men, and the way that it cuts between their home life and back to the heist and how the heist went wrong. So you see Viola Davis with Liam Neeson in their nice little their nice little apartment that they live together.
Well, it opens on a very passionate kiss between husband and wife in bed.
Yes.
And so, as an audience member, you're introduced to this relationship as red hot.
A very loving relationship, a red hot relationship, which kind of gets turned on its ear towards the end of the film. But then also the Elizabeth Debicki character Alice and John Bernthal, who's not. He's
barely in the movie.
I'm like, oh, we're doing Baby Driver again? Oh, come on.
Even less. But he is a wife beater.
Yeah, he is an abuser. He is an abuser. And then Michelle Rodriguez's character and her husband, which they own a store, which we don't really know a lot about how her husband has been able to pay the rent and the money to maintain this store.
He has a gambling problem.
Yeah.
So he'll score, and then he will
lose it.
Yeah.
And not only lose his money, but
in
the
doing
shop.
so, he underneath her gave her shop away.
Yeah. So there's just a lot that this movie explores. I'll let you guys get to it. The last thing I do want to mention is Daniel Kaluuya.
Oh my
God.
Okay.
He is terrifying.
I put this in my review. I think Daniel Kaluuya may be the most terrifying character I've seen on screen this year.
I mean, he's up there for sure.
More than Thanos. I'm like, because every time he comes on screen, I literally tense up. I'm like, oh shit.
He's definitely scarier than Thanos.
He is scary.
Because at least Thanos has principles.
Yeah.
Yes.
Kaluuya has this scene in the movie where he goes to a bowling alley to confront a middleman, played by Kevin J. O'Connor, who I love. I've loved him ever since Lord of Illusions. I've just been such a fan of him. And, he doesn't have feeling below the waist.
His waist, yeah.
And so, he tips him out of the chair, and he just starts stabbing him all over, like all over the waist, and then up top, too, and down below. And it's just,
man, it's
brutal.
It's
scary. It's scary.
It's scary. It's absolutely terrifying. But yeah, those are just some of my goods that I have for the film so far.
Lisa, what goods do you want to talk about?
Okay, so what I loved about this movie was the way it presented the gender politics, because when these criminals die, they leave their wives, their so-called loved ones, with nothing.
Yeah,
Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
And all of these women do what they need to do to take care of their children. And then there's another character, Belle, who's played by, I love this woman.
Cynthia Erivo.
Cynthia Erivo, who we saw in El Royale, who was absolutely amazing. And I didn't recognize her. I'm horrible with faces, but she's a completely different person in this movie. I mean, she's an actress, but I mean, like, she transforms herself. I think she's tough. She's like hitting the bag, looking amazing.
She's a brick.
Those Belle toys.
Oh my goodness, it's a lot. It's a lot to process. But she is working 2 jobs, and then she leaves her children to go watch somebody else's children. You know what I mean? So just to dealing with being a woman, being a mother, and having to provide 100% for your family.
Well, that scene when she gets back from her day job, her mom's been taking care of her daughter. Her daughter's been waiting to see her all day.
Yeah.
She gets back to her apartment, gets a phone call, says, "Hey, you've got another gig."
She does like Uber for babysitters.
Yeah, and it's why Billy's not here today, by the way, because that Uber for babysitters failed him. She gets that call. Oh, I can go make more money, and then she has to. She can't Uber. She can't take a cab because that's too expensive. She's got to get to the bus, and she hauls ass to the bus. Yeah. And as she's running by, she's getting catcalled. Yeah. By this group of guys outside, and like to see just her drive in physical form and mental form. I thought the way that McQueen directed all of that, and the way the screenplay handles that, phenomenal.
And it's just a situation where, You know, either you can provide for your children monetarily, or you can provide for your children emotionally, but you literally cannot do both, because making the smallest amount of money is so time consuming.
And going back to the political aspect of that, even at the hair salon where she works,
Yes.
and her boss, and how she has to pay off the guy that's working for Mulligan, and just to maintain her shop, and how that comes.
Well, it's a complete.
And Mulligan's using small business as a platform for himself. Look, I've provided all these
It's
jobs
complete
for
thug politics.
Yes, thug politics.
And that idea of, being alderman is a business, and you're in it to make money. You're not actually in it for the good of anybody. I think the most meaningful thing gender politic wise was Viola Davis's relationship with Liam Neeson. And so I want to work backwards from her expression at the end of the movie, because the final shot, because the movie ends with her greeting Elizabeth Debicki with the most radiant, carefree smile. Do you remember that smile? It was like a weight had been lifted off of her.
Earlier in the film?
No, at the end, the
Yes,
final shot
yes,
of the movie.
yes,
And
yes.
to me, that told me everything about her burden. Because just before that, she had turned over to Mulligan's
like goon.
Goon. Not goon, but he was
Political goon.
Political goon. She turned over to him part of her share of the money in order to build a library to honor her son, who was killed by a cop because he was a black guy driving a nice car. So throughout the movie, she's being this cold, hard person. And you think it's, because she lost her husband. When you see her remember their relationship together, she remembers them kissing and having these intimate moments.
Nina Simone's on the
player. and that, she got all of this value out of their relationship, and then we later see, her son has died, but their relationship survived the death of their son.
But you see it starting to crumble.
But in reality, so then we find out, I hope Darren's not within earshot.
Huh?
Okay, his fingers are in his ears. Okay, so then we find out that Liam Neeson is not dead. That he was in cahoots with Mulligan to fake his death so he could run off and start a new family.
And his best bud's wife.
To start a new family with somebody else, because he can't handle the burden of being, the father of a dead child and a criminal and blah blah blah. Just selfishness is what it is. So in doing that, what she had was all he left her with was some happy memories with him.
And grief.
And then he took that away from her. He took everything away from her. And to see her at the end of the movie be able to do something to take that burden off, even though it was crimes and plots and schemes. The fact that she could feel effective, and she can feel in charge of her life, and she can feel in charge of her son's legacy that was taken from him. I love that. And then we see, that idea through these other women of those women were more impoverished than she appeared. She had nothing, but she had a nice apartment and she had nice clothes and blah blah blah. They had literally nothing, and nothing to provide. Just to get a job, you need to be at a certain level.
The impression I get at the end of that film is, what is the climax of that movie? The climax of that movie is her becoming her own agent, and that the relief of that, and how now she can relate to other human beings now that she's taken back her position in the world, even though there's probably some people still
Still
coming
looking
after,
for her.
coming after her, because there isn't a total resolution of Jamal's character.
Yeah, there isn't.
And, you know, she's probably got to get out of Chicago pretty quickly.
But I mean, like, to me, there's no evidence that she has the money except for the Asian woman.
Oh yeah, that was in the house.
That was in the house.
Yeah.
But, you know, womanhood, she's never going to tell, right? The bond of womanhood, that's going to keep that shut. And Daniel Kaluuya is...
Well, he's gone.
He's gone.
Yeah.
So, like, whoever has the money is clearly not someone to fuck with. So either she's not a person to fuck with, or she is more broker than broke now. She has zero anything. Because she had told the guy who was stabbed in the she told the bowling alley guy that Kevin J. O'Connor that she had given the notebook away.
Yes.
And so now the presumption is, well, the notebook has been used. And
What
so
I'm
now
saying
it's useless.
is that it doesn't matter
To her. Yeah, it doesn't
well, it doesn't matter to the story.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter to the story what narratively happens to her afterwards because
Yeah.
she's completed her emotional arc.
Her point was honoring her son.
Well, and herself.
Yeah.
What about your good? What was some of your good?
I think my good was all that stuff that we were just saying. I think I would just highlight again how visually stunning the movie is, how well directed it is, but also like the cinematography is, I think, really phenomenal. I actually really love Hans Zimmer's score in the movie too. The way it picks up Nina Simone's song, which I'm blanking on right now, and carries the melody throughout its score, I really, really loved.
I need to pay attention to that. I'm gonna go see it again, but I need to pay attention to the score.
And I you know, the performances from the main players are all really, really great.
Very fascinating. Yeah. I guess we can talk a little bit about the bad.
Yeah.
I'll kick it off. I just not really a lot because I enjoyed this film a lot, but I think it's more from a technical standpoint and how it affected my viewing narratively watching the film. I think it was just more so some of the editing choices, like just the way they I think it was more structurally and how things were kind of presented, and it just sometimes it just didn't feel like it carried a lot of weight, but it all does kind of come together, I think, brilliantly at the end of the film. But how they kind of revealed the story of her and Liam Neeson's son, and then how we cut to that scene, and just structurally how that stuff is kind of put together, just felt kind of didn't flow.
It is jarring, but I actually really appreciated that.
Okay.
Well, again, to go back to the beginning and the first shot of the movie with them, you know, being fully engaged in a passionate kiss, and then saying ultimately that passionate kiss is just a moment. It doesn't define their relationship because of all this other horrible stuff that's going on. And she's not even aware of really how much the death of her child affected her husband.
True.
You know, there's a lot going on there.
And she carried a lot of guilt because of the man she chose to marry. And how, like, at one
that
point
causes anger.
Yeah, at one point it seemed like she blamed him partially for the death of her son.
There are a series of flashbacks, and they don't necessarily, to Brian's point, clarify. You know, this is a flashback. You know, like obviously it is a flashback because Neeson's there. You know?
But I think that it shows how, like, at the beginning of the movie, she's in mourning. Like, she feels like she's honoring her husband at the beginning of the movie. But then as she examines the relationship further and other things reveal themselves,
but
like her memory changes.
That son does not get revealed till way late, even his existence.
But I also think that now I'm just thinking about this now, I think it also goes through the process of grief, because I think a lot of those flashbacks also just kind of they feel almost kind of dreamlike, because they feel kind of dreamlike, and I think it also goes through that process of grief, because after Liam Neeson dies, from the flashbacks that we see in the beginning, they are more loving and more intimate of the memories that she has. But as we move through the film, we start to reveal some of those flashbacks as being more antagonistic between each other.
So the flashbacks are almost signifiers or her emotions signify what type of flashback we're going to get. So, like, based on how her character is feeling in that moment in the film, we now have a flashback to mirror where she is.
But I think the way I think that the way that the revelations are unfolded are masterful, because it's like one of those things where you're coming to your own conclusions all of the time.
When the dog's barking at the closet, you're going like, what? And then the closet door opens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have the thought at the beginning of the movie, in the explosion, like somebody made it? Because every time I see that in a movie, so that, like, when I watched that scene, I was just like, somebody didn't die.
Lisa was already thinking.
See, I didn't pick up on it. Not even when the dog was barking at the door, when they showed like the flash or whatever. Then I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, was it? Well, the flash wasn't even like introduced until.
Well, they showed a flashback earlier because she.
Yeah, I recognized it as his flask immediately.
Yeah. Okay. Because that flashback to the pouring of the drink doesn't happen after that moment.
No, it doesn't.
No, that happens
before.
earlier. That happens earlier because I think they try to plant that so that at that moment when you see it, because that's what triggers her to realize.
This is why I'm excited to watch the movie again, is so I can really pay attention to the structure of the movie and the editing of the film and how they piece out the information.
Yeah. I guess my only other bad would be, I guess, the Cynthia Erivo's character. As far as like how they bring her in, felt a little abrupt. As far as because they needed another driver, and then like she comes over to babysit, and then
it's a little weird, and that was going to be my bad as well.
Okay.
I love the Cynthia Erivo character, and I love what that character is doing for the themes of the movie.
Yes,
but how Michelle Rodriguez just brings her along.
But you know she's going to be involved because you see her background. No, because you see her background leading up to that point. And I think that it's, a woman recognizes another desperate woman.
Yes, you know she's going to be involved based on what you're seeing at the beginning of the movie, just like how in Heat, Dennis Haysbert's introduced as the...
Yes, that's the same thing I thought about.
Right?
Yes.
And so you're like, okay, how is she going to be brought in like that Haysbert brought in? I think Haysbert is brought into his crime and his set piece in Heat a little more organically than how it's handled here.
And you understand his motivation for why he would accept that job. And I think you do to a degree in Widows as well, but it just feels like it's... That was my only...
It didn't bother me at all.
Yeah. Okay.
I literally didn't notice.
Okay.
And on a second watch, it might not bother me. It just felt a little funky and a little movie to me.
For me, what I feel like I don't understand, and I don't know if it's just because like my limited knowledge, but I didn't quite understand the motivations of Manning. And like Jamal. I understand that.
Well, he was done. He wants to get out of the life of crime,
right?
And he wants
to be in a different life of crime, which is
he sees
government,
and he sees the swindling that's happening from his low level on the totem pole, and he goes, you know what? I can take what I have done here and apply that and get me up there,
right? And then he can continue to keep his loyalties that he has. Now from this privileged position, I just think that
he's
we
now
get
37, as he says.
But to me, we get a lot of time with Colin Farrell's character,
and less time with him. Yeah,
and less time with him. So I feel like, and it's also confusing. Mulligan Manning, those names sound the same.
Oh, I messed up earlier. So
anyway, but like you spend a lot of time with Colin Farrell's character, and I feel like you get more depth in who he is, where I feel like we don't necessarily get that same depth, and that just might be because Colin Farrell is the target of the heist, so I guess it makes sense that you spend more time with him. But I was just curious.
Well, and Farrell and his dad, played by Robert Duvall, represent the true evil of the story.
Those scenes are great.
Robert Duvall is such a monster.
Oh my God, so scary.
Such a big vile in this. You just want I don't want to see Robert Duvall in another movie ever again.
I know.
He looks
he's
awful.
I know he's a great actor.
They really made him look awful. And I mean, just they're like, hey, unbutton that button one more button. We really want to see how old your chest is. His chest is very old.
Very old.
Very
old.
God.
So I guess
that's brave.
Yes.
And that unbuttoning that button was very brave on his part.
He doesn't care.
Yeah.
No. But I guess going to that point, I guess we can go to our ugly.
Oh, that's not going to be my ugly. That would be insensitive.
Yeah, no. But I guess my ugly really is just the overall politics of the film. I mean, just seeing how ugly these politics are and these evil people, these corrupt people, the corruption that happens in these lower level politics. I mean, we talk about that on a grander scale with our federal government, but even on the lower level, when you're talking about like city councils and these aldermen and stuff like that, and how these people are using their money,
who often have more impact on your daily life than anybody else in the government.
Exactly, and how that affects the people living in these communities. I mean, we see that in so many different ways with these women who are trying to have their own businesses but are getting swindled by these businessmen and getting money taken away from them. It's just the politics of it. I just think it's just really, really ugly. But to shed a light on that, to really see, and that's what I like about Steve McQueen. Is like you were saying, his other films. I mean, he's able to really just shed this very, I don't know, this true to life sensibility that he has in his films, and he really brings that to this type of film.
And you really don't go into that film expecting that kind of lesson, which I really appreciated.
Right? So my ugly is how McQueen taps into the ugly he often tapped into with Hunger, Shame, and 12 Years a Slave.
Yeah.
You know, he sneaks it into this movie. You know, I can't remember who said it online, but I think someone referred to Widows as prestige popcorn. Might have been Richard Lawson of Vanity Fair. Anyway, when I heard prestige popcorn, I was like, "Ooh, that's a great line." I am jealous of that line. Nice. But McQueen achieves that. He achieves all the things you want when you walk into Heat. You know, all the excitement, all the terror, all the emotion. But then he's also like, hey, guess what, America? I hate you. Why do you keep doing this? Why do you have to behave this way? Why do you have the gender politics, as Lisa was saying, the evil politics of Brian's point, and you know the scene of their son being coldly shot down by this terrified police officer. You know, it's so gross. There's so much grossness. In the film, Elizabeth Debicki and her whole relationship with her mom.
Oh God.
That was going to be my ugly.
Sorry.
My ugly.
Let me pause it and then pass it.
Is the performance of Jackie Weaver playing Elizabeth Debicki's mother, Agnieszka. They are a Polish family, but
the gun show. Oh my God,
ugly. But just how casually she sells sex work to her daughter. And that idea of, well,
what else you got?
What else do you have? And yeah, I just found that just so tragically sad. And the fact that, you know, she feels like, well, if it's good enough for me, you know what I mean? If it's good enough for these other girls who are in the same position, who are, you know, selling themselves so that they can pay for college, like, don't you want to go to college? What other means do you have but your body?
And that one line that she tells her is like, you know, when you were under my roof, 16, 17, 18, I heard all these boys, and Elizabeth Debicki was like, yeah, but I never was with them for money.
Yeah.
You know,
they didn't pay me.
Yeah, it's just...
And this idea, like, well, you're spoiled already. You're ruined already because you've had, like...
We didn't talk about Debicki in our good, but Debicki's really good.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. Amazing.
She's such an interesting figure, like physically.
Yeah.
She's a head taller than everybody.
Yeah.
And like, I love how they don't hide that fact, like how alien
like what
she
a
looks
freak she
amongst
is.
Everybody.
Well, I mean, because she's gorgeous.
She is.
But she can never be inconspicuous. She is so, you know, and that's got to be exhausting, you know?
Yeah. Because I wasn't familiar with her outside of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, where she plays Aisha. But outside of that, I don't think I've seen her in anything else. So
not of anything as significant as her performance in Widows.
Yeah.
But so she's otherworldly, like.
And I love how the movie ends with those two widows.
Yeah.
And she was really the only one who found a place in her heart for Viola Davis, who was like, I see your pain. And she does so much to protect her dignity in front of those other women. Like, she never sells her out emotionally to those other women.
Yeah. Great. It's a fascinating film. I'm actually glad we had this conversation because I like the film, but I was wrestling with a lot of the issues because I think going to that point that it doesn't feel like a commercial film, and I think a lot of people, because at the end of the film, the audience I saw it with, I mean, you could tell was a little bit divided because I think they were going in wanting like this really crowd-pleasing heist film, but it's doing something a little bit deeper than that.
Here's a weird comparison that I'm going to make. We talked, I can't remember where it was, I think one of our Fistful episodes a few weeks back, I brought up Reservoir Dogs, and like the first time you watch Reservoir Dogs, so I went into watching Reservoir Dogs for Mr. Pink and Mr. White to hold guns on each other that's on the poster, right? Yeah. And Reservoir Dogs did not deliver that. What Reservoir Dogs delivered was a bunch of assholes talking compellingly.
Yes.
And I feel like there's a kid out there who's going to rent Widows because he wants to watch a badass heist film.
The female version of Heat.
Yeah, and what he's going to get is something truly artful.
Yes.
And it's going to open his or her mind.
Yeah.
And that's what I find really exciting about audiences stumbling into Widows. And it's not going to be for everybody. And it is going to alienate some people who just want a popcorn film. They don't want prestige popcorn.
I still think the heist element is great, though.
I do
and
like
I think that you do get a lot, like, they go enough into the heist where you're like, I think I could do a heist. It's like after a Gone in 60 Seconds, I was like, I can totally steal a car now. This movie, I'm like, I'm pretty sure.
And the other movie thing is they've got these blueprints. Where do these blueprints, like, where do they belong to? What building do they belong to? How they discover that? Like, okay, all right, that's where you're gonna get held up.
But I like how they're not professionals when they take on this heist. Like, even when they get to the safe and she has the thing upside down and she's putting in the wrong code and she's like, no, flip it. It's like, because you can see like the nervousness.
Well, because they're panicking.
They're panicking. But it's cool how he puts all those nuances in the film. So it just fleshes everything out. I thought it was really, really good.
I think that just shows an attention to detail. Where they're like, oh, we got to come up with a code that also looks the same. It looks like another code upside down. I love it.
All right, Darren, you can come back. Join us. Return. Darren's been in the corner this entire time.
So now he's not going to know that everybody dies at the end. Thanos in this movie too.
Oh no, Michelle Rodriguez, no.
She makes it.
Yes.
But it's weirdly only her right half. She's the only one. Turns out there was an odd number of people on Earth.
Oh, no.
So yeah, it's her right half made it. Left half gone.
Was it consensus in my thumb of approval?
Yeah.
So many thumbs up.
Yeah. Okay.
I really like that.
I'm really excited to see it now. I mean, I was looking forward to see it, but hearing you all talk so highly of it.
Yeah.
You know, I like plots and schemes.
Yeah. Okay.
And kissing.
I feel like I missed
spoilers.
something.
There's some kissing in this movie.
Is it?
Oh yeah, with
You don't
tongues.
have to wait long to see it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. What are you looking forward to this week?
Oh God, Creed 2.
That's right. Okay. So that's right, Thanksgiving coming up. So happy holidays to all the listeners out there. But yeah, so Creed 2, Wreck-It Ralph also opens up.
Yeah, those two I'm looking forward to, but Creed 2 that's my jam right there.
All right. You can find that guy at the Turkey Dork. I'm sorry, at the Turtle Dork on Twitter, at the Turtle Dork 1 on Instagram, and at Brian William Young on Facebook. Wife Dork, what are you looking forward to?
I guess I'm looking forward to Creed 2 as well. Is there anything else coming out that I'm interested in?
Robin Hood.
Oh. No.
Why would you say that when I asked you what else is coming out? You just don't want to give them.
I'm sorry.
That movie looks awful.
Damn. Robin Hood, I'm rooting for you. You have one dork out and supporting for you.
You can't punch up Robin Hood. It's not Robin Hood anymore. Just
maybe
come
they're
up
just
with your own
love
character.
tapping. They're not trying to punch. They're just trying to love tap it. Dang, Rob, I'm riding for you, Robin Hood. Anyway, you can find that lovely young lady at Sidewalk Siren and at Baked Dork on Twitter and Instagram, and she's also at Sidewalk Siren on Letterboxd.
That's right.
Brad Gullickson, Mouth Dork, what are you looking forward to besides Creed 2?
Along with Ballad of Buster Scruggs on Netflix, they dropped Cam.
That was at Fantastic Fest.
That was at Fantastic Fest, and I missed it.
On Netflix?
Yeah, it's on Netflix right now, so
Okay.
I'm going to watch that next.
Yeah, I wanted to check that out.
All right. You can follow that guy at Mouth Dork on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Letterboxd, and Untapped. And I am looking forward to Wreck-It Ralph Ralph Wreck.
Breaks the internet.
Breaks the internet. Because it's like a thing.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to seeing that too. Looking forward to spending some time with my family. And yeah, are you looking forward to any Black Friday deals? Okay, Lisa.
No, sure about that.
So, a PlayStation 4, they have a bundle with the new Spider-Man game, and it's only $199.
Wow, that's practically free.
Practically, so.
That sounds like a good purchase.
I'm just saying.
Okay, I'm adding it to my gifts for myself list.
No!
What?
Brad!
What?
Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for us. Thank you all for listening. Enjoy the rest of your week. Be on the lookout for our fistful of rematches.
Yeah.
Yeah, in honor of Creed 2. All right, so we got a fistful of rematches coming up. So that's going to do it for us. Thank you all for listening. Enjoy the rest of your week. Oh, yeah, you can also find, even though he is not with us today, the Indie Dork. Shout out to the Indie Dork, that guy. You can find him at WBDaz on Twitter and also at Instagram. Now, that's going to do it for us. Thank you all for listening. Enjoy the rest of your week. And until next time.